Welcome to Tammy the Tutor. Today we're going to tackle CC2 lesson 1.1.2. Again, that's a CC2. Make sure you're in the right section. Okay, 1-11. Find the perimeter and area of each figure below. Be sure to include the correct units in your answers. Okay, let's do perimeter first. Perimeter is pretty much the easiest thing you'll do in math. It's just outside measurement, which means you just add up all the sides. Okay, we have a triangle here. I see we've got 6 plus 5 plus 7.5. 6 and 5 is 11. 11 and 7.5 is 18.5. Don't forget your label. It's inches. Perimeter for this trapezoid. I have 13 and 12, which is 25. 25 and 23, we're at 48. And then we have 13.4 to add to it. Okay, 61.4 centimeters. Okay, we've got a parallelogram over here. I have 7 and 7 and 4 and 4. So that's 14 plus 8, and that would be 22 yards. Okay, very simple. Okay, area. Area is not difficult. It's just a little more involved than perimeter. Each shape has its own formula to find area. So I'm going to write the formulas kind of next to them. Triangle is base times height divided by 2. And the trapezoid, it's the same thing as a triangle. The only difference is there are 2 bases, and you want to add them together and then continue out, multiply it times height divided by 2. And this parallelogram is just like a square or a rectangle where area equals base times height. Okay, so let's actually do the math. Let's plug our numbers in. So right here for this triangle, let's talk about the difference between base and height. The base is the thing that it sits on, okay, and the height is that straight up and down line. So we've got 7.5 times 4 divided by 2. You could do 7.5 times 4 and then divide it by 2 in the end, but I think it's easier if you just do 4 divided by 2 at the beginning, because now I know that 7.5 times 2 is 15. And this time our units will be squared. Anytime you're doing area, whatever unit you're working with, whether it's centimeters, centiliters, kilograms, inches, yards, feet, you'll always have to the second power or that squared with it. Okay, your trapezoid. So here's our formula right here. Let's look. Remember I said there are 2 bases. That 23 is one of the bases, and that 12 is the other base. So if I wanted to flip it over, the 12 would be what it was actually sitting on. So they're both bases. Let's add those together. 12 plus 23. Put that in parentheses. That's going to help us to remember to do that first. And then we will multiply it times height. There's that straight up and down. That's always your height. Times 12. Divided by 2. So we will do what's in parentheses first. That would be 35. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 3, 18, 210. So that would be centimeters square, 210 centimeters square. Okay, look at our parallelogram. I just need base times height. If you turned it this shape this way, that 7 would be the base that it's sitting on, and you can see that 3 yards would be that straight up and down height. So 7 times 3 equals 21 yards square. I just want to give you guys a little hint here. I've had a lot of students get confused by parallelograms because they will think, okay, that's the base, but then they'll consider that line here, the height. You can never have a slanted line be the height. the very definition of height is straight and tall. Like if you go to the doctor and he wants to do a checkup and he weighs you and wants to see how tall you've grown, and they put you up against the wall and they're trying to see where you measure up on their measuring stick. Can you imagine the doctor saying, "Oh, wait, could you just like slant yourself a little bit?" No, he would never do that because the whole point is they want to see how tall you are. So you have to stand straight. So don't ever be confused with a slanted line. That will never be your height. Look for the straight up and down. Number 12. Think about games that you can remember playing with your friends or family. Okay, I'm not going to do this problem. There's no math to do or anything for me to help you solve. This is just your experience, kind of like the mathography game, kind of like that mathography question. And your teacher may or may not even have you do this. So let's skip this one and move on to 13. Okay, for each of the following pairs of events, predict which is more likely. Okay, event number 1, you will win more than $1 million in a lottery sometime in your life. Or event 2, you will learn to speak a language that you do not already know. Okay, really, what are the chances that you will win $1 million, more than $1 million, or even $5 in a lottery, right? That's very, very, very unlikely. As a matter of fact, try to think, have you ever even heard of anybody that you know personally who's ever won money in a lottery? Probably not. On the other hand, think about all the people that you know who have learned to speak another language, right? As a matter of fact, I believe in high school, you're required to take a second language. A lot of people have friends or family who speak different languages, so they want to learn how. Some people go on missions for their church and they learn a different language. There's a lot of opportunities for you to learn a different language, whereas winning anything in a lottery, it's not that likely. Okay, for B, event 1, your classmates will all wear the same kind of shoes on the same day. Or 2, your classmates will all eat the same thing for lunch on the same day. Okay? I'm trying to think any scenario where I could even imagine all your classmates wearing the same kind of shoes on the same day. Think about all the different people in your class and how everybody has different tastes and owns different kinds of things. And if you all had to shop at the same store and make this huge grand plan to wear the same shoes on the same day, that's so not likely. But what are the chances that you're all going to eat the same thing for lunch that day? Well, if you're all going to the cafeteria that day, you're going to eat what they're serving. And so you're probably all going to eat the same thing. Or maybe you had a pizza party, you won something from your teacher and they brought pizza in. You're all eating the same thing. So you get the point. It's way, way more likely that you're all going to eat the same thing for lunch on the same day than wearing the same shoes. Okay. Number 14. So that's copy the number line below and label the point for each of the following numbers. Okay. Let me make another number line so it's bigger so we can see it better. Let's call that 0. Okay. Looks like we're going to go up to 5 and then -5. Now, ideally, these would be spaced perfectly and equally, but I am doing the best I can, just eyeballing it. Okay, the first number they want us to label is -4. Okay, right here. That's pretty easy. We've already got a spot that says -4. Then we have +3. Again, super easy. And then we have 0.5 or 5/10 or 1/2, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same. So if you think about 1/2, it's not even one whole yet. So that would be perfectly in the middle of 0 and 1. That is 1/2 right there. Okay, we have -3.5. Okay, so we know it's -3.5. Here's the question some kids might struggle with. is 3.5 this way or is 3.5 that way? Okay, so think about it in terms of positive numbers. Take the negative out of it for a second. If you had 3.5, you would know, oh, that's perfectly between 3 and 4. It's halfway between 3 and 4, 3.5. Well, the same goes with the negative. If you're at -3.5, you're between -3 and -4. Okay, now we have 0. We have 1. And then we have -2. And then looks like +5. Yeah. So I have had a lot of students who tend to be afraid of number lines, and I'm not sure why. I feel like number lines are a perfect guide, and you can see everything that's going on. Let yourself look at it. Don't be afraid of number lines, guys. Okay, number 15. Maria was playing a game with her brother. She said, I'm thinking of a number. When you multiply my number by 6 and add 7, you get 25. What is my number? Okay, so they want us to find Maria's number and explain how we figured it out. I know a lot of you probably are doing some mental math right now, and you are able to think that through in your head and you can find the answer, and that's really great. But I am going to show you how to turn this into a math sentence or an equation, because that's really what they're wanting you to work towards. That's a skill that you really need to learn. And I'm not saying that you can't figure it out without coming up with an equation, because I know you can. I've seen a lot of kids do it, and that really is good. However, learning how to take a word problem and turn it into an equation on your own is going to be one of the most helpful skills to get you through math the rest of high school. So here's what we're going to do. It says, I'm thinking of a number. Well, obviously we don't know yet what that number is. And that's kind of the point of algebra. When we don't yet know what the number is, we use what they call a variable. Any letter of the alphabet. I'm just going to use X because that's what is mostly used. So I'm thinking of a number. There it is. It says when I multiply my number by 6, okay, easy enough. 6 next to that variable means multiplication. And it says and add 7, okay. We're going to add 7. And it says you get 25. Okay, now I want you to follow along when I read this again, and I want you to appreciate really how easy this is. I'm thinking of a number. When I multiply it times 6 and add 7, I get 25. It's as simple as that. So now we just need to do some algebra and solve it. Again, you probably are doing mental math to figure it out. That's great, but let's be more diligent in solving this the real algebra way, because you're going to need to know how to do this. So I always think of algebra like the justice scales, and you always have to keep both sides perfectly even and balanced. And that is exactly how algebra works. So here's the middle, okay? That equal sign serves as your middle, and you want this side to always be balanced or to equal this side. So also in algebra, I want you to think of your goal is to solve for the x. So I want my x to live on this left side of the equal sign all by itself. I want all the other numbers to eventually go away or to move to the other side. So we're going to start with getting rid of that 7. Well, how do you get rid of a positive 7? You subtract a 7, because 7 minus 7 is 0, okay? Think of our justice scales. We just changed this side, and now it's tipping. So quickly go to the other side and change it exactly the same way, and then there we go. Your scales are balanced again. Okay, that's how algebra works. So now over here, because that equals 0, that's gone. We're left with the 6x equals, and then 25 minus 7 is 18, okay? Now we're almost there. We've almost solved for x, but we still have that 6 kind of hanging out there. I always tell my students it's like this monkey on your back that's just clinging to you, and we want to get rid of that 6. So let me show you something. If you haven't figured this out by now, this might help. When we were up here, we wanted to get rid of that positive 7. We subtracted 7. Do you see how subtraction is the opposite operation of addition? So whatever operation they're already doing, you want to do the opposite. Adding, subtracting are opposites. Okay, come down here. We want to get rid of that 6. They're multiplying now, 6 times x. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Division. Okay, we're going to divide this side by 6. We just tipped the scales again. So quickly come to the other side and change that exactly the same way. And then you're balanced. So now just do the math. Well, 6 divided by 6 is 1x. Do I really need to write a 1 next to that x? Or is it obvious there's just one x? Exactly. Don't need to write a 1. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Okay, we've solved it. We know our number that we were thinking of is 3. But it's always a really good practice in math. If you want to check your answer, go back to your original equation and plug that number in for x right here. Okay. 6 times not x, because we said x equals 3, plus 7 equals 25. 6 times 3 is 18. Well, 18 plus 7 is 25, and 25 equals 25. So 3 made this equation true, and we know for sure that that's our answer. Okay, so we're all done with today's section, guys. Thank you for hanging out, and stay tuned for more.